Hey everybody, it's Emma. Thank you very much for joining me in this video today. I'm going to be talking about the new Wet n Wild stuff that I've bought. So obviously this stuff has been out for, a couple months now. Everybody and their uncle has been doing videos on them on YouTube, but I figured I would throw my 2 cents into the mix. So I'm going to show you what I got, my thoughts. These are all things that I've been playing with over the past couple months, so I have a pretty good idea of how I like them. Let's start with one of my favorite things from the new collection. This is the Wet n Wild Easy Brow Retractable Brow Pencil. Now, I picked this up on a whim. I actually did not expect to like it because it has a kind of triangular tip a la the Anastasia Brow Definer, which, if you have seen previous videos of mine where I've mentioned that, talked about it, used it, I did not like it. This is very similar. It has a spoolie on one end and again that triangular tip, but the formula of this makes this my new favorite brow pencil. I find my biggest problem with the Brow Definer from Anastasia is that it was thick and quite soft, so I didn't feel like I could kind of go in and do any hair-like strokes, if you will, and especially the tail, wrong side, the tail ends of my brows. The hair is sparse, to say the least, so I appreciate being able to be a little bit more precise. The formula of this is dry enough that I can do that, even though it isn't quite a, it's not like a micro brow or a Brow Wiz pencil. It's awesome, and it's like $3, and this is my new brow jam. Another surprising love is the MegaSlim Skinny Mascara in Waterproof. Now, again, if you had seen my video, which I will link around, when the last year, I think, Wet n Wild came out with a bunch of new stuff, and one of those was the Skinny Mascara. I hated it. The formula was really clumpy. Now, maybe I got a bad one, which is not a good excuse. There shouldn't be bad ones. Quality control should be a thing. But anyway, it was really clumpy. It seemed like there were fibers in it, even though I couldn't find anything anywhere to say that this was a fiber mascara. I just didn't like it. But when I bought this, I was using a mascara that smudged. So I figured, for the $4 or $5 that this is, give it a try. And I actually really like it. I find it to be one of the best mascaras that Wet n Wild has ever put out, actually. Wet n Wild mascaras tend to be a little bit more on the natural end of the spectrum, but this is really great for defining, for lengthening, and for darkening. The brush is skinny, but it's also very long, so I don't find it particularly easy to use. The formula is a little bit wet at first, so I found when I was first kind of getting the hang of this mascara, if I got too close to the roots of my lashes, I would get smudges along the lash line, which may or may not matter depending on what makeup you have on, but just keep that in mind. But I find this to be a really great, inexpensive, cruelty-free, waterproof mascara. Not terribly difficult to remove. It's going to take a little bit more elbow grease than maybe some other mascaras, but all in all, this is a win. Now, I haven't gotten anything from this collection that I've hated, but a couple of things haven't worked out for me so well. One of them is the MegaCushion foundation. Not because the formula is bad, but because the color isn't quite right. I'm keeping this around for the summer, hoping it will work out a little bit better for me, but it's just a little too dark. The only other thing I don't like about it is fragranced. I know a lot of people probably complained, me possibly being one of them, when Wet n Wild launched the Photo Focus foundation because it smelled like chemical paint glue. So I'm guessing that Wet n Wild heard that and so added perfume to this so that it wouldn't smell like chemical paint glue, because that's a thing. I would prefer just the natural chemical scent, to be quite honest, just because fragrance often doesn't play well with my skin. I've only used this a couple of times. I didn't notice any irritation from it, so hopefully I'm in the clear. I do love the packaging of this. It's just cute. It comes with a little sponge, which I have not used. It's nice and clean. And then, whoop, you open up this compartment and the foundation is there. I'll swatch it on the back of my hand for you. It's the kind of color that initially worked fine, but as it dried down on my skin, it didn't. Oh, by the way, it's in light ivory, so this is the lightest shade that they have. It's a really nice formula. It's lighter coverage than the Photo Focus. It blends into the skin a lot better than the Photo Focus. One of my complaints of that foundation was that it kind of sat on my skin rather than blending into it. This blends in really nice, and when I was testing it out, it did seem to last pretty well. It's a lot more glowy and kind of hydrating feeling. I don't know how that will play out for me in the summer. I'm hoping that the color does, though, because it's a really pretty foundation and I would love to wear this more often. Maybe they'll expand the shade range. That would be sweet. Next couple things I want to talk about is the Hello Halo liquid highlighters. I'm a huge fan of liquid highlighters, and I'm a huge fan of Wet n Wild's highlighters in general. I've been playing with them a decent amount, although I've been trying to use up a NYX liquid highlighter, but I feel like they function in very similar ways. In fact, I'm wearing the NYX highlighter right now. These perform almost exactly, and they're a little bit cheaper and you get more product, so I would definitely recommend these. So I have two shades. Swatch them out for you and show you. They come with this kind of giant doe foot applicator. So this first shade is called Halo Goodbye, and it's just a really pretty kind of icy pink, so that's a thick swatch. Kind of blend it out on the back of my hand a little bit so you can see. This is still going to be thick. I wouldn't wear this in real life as thick as this, but you can see it's just a really beautiful, wet, dewy look on the skin, which is my personal preference for highlighters, and one of the reasons I love liquid highlighters, because they tend to lean more in this direction. The other shade I have is called Halographic, and this is a cool shade. I don't wear it all the time because it is not as natural looking on my skin. It's a white base and this sort of, ooh, it's not coming across on camera as well as I would like it to. It's got a definite violet undertone, which is really cool. It look a little bit more obvious on my skin, especially if I turn my head, if the light isn't hitting my skin in the way to make it kind of glow with that violet shift. It can look a little bit gray. Just keep that in mind if you've been eyeing this shade. I don't mind, and if I wear it, I know that that is a thing that can happen. So I wear with specific looks where I'm just wanting that kind of different sort of shift on my skin. But both are really nice. They wear very well throughout the day. They blend in really easily over bare skin, over powder, and over cream. So definitely recommend these. And then last but not least, the eyeshadow palettes. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, everybody and their dog has done videos on these. So if you want like a really in-depth video, either let me know, I'd be happy to do one, or search in the YouTube thing, because there have been a lot done. I just want to give you some quick thoughts. So I have 4 palettes altogether. I got 2 of the quads and 2 of the 10 pan palettes. While it has been tempting to buy more, these are the ones that I really wanted, the colors that spoke to me, all that jazz. So I'm trying to, you know, keep my spending to just the things that I want, not, oh, this is cheap, so let me buy it and declutter it in a couple months because I don't use it anyway. All right, so just briefly, these are great, but not my favorite. I prefer the formula of the old 8-pan palettes, which was creamier, a little more pigmented, a little easier to blend. These are a little bit drier for the most part. I mean, some shades are different than others. I find the shimmers to not be quite as intense as they were in the 8-pan palettes, which may or may not be good to you. Depending on your eyeshadow preferences, you may like these better or not. So let's just talk individually. The first one I got was not a basic peach, mostly because it was the first one I found. I did want this when I was looking at all of the different options and everything, so it wasn't me just getting something for the sake of it. Although I will say this is probably my least favorite of the palettes that I have gotten. The mattes in here are really nice, but none of the mattes in here are colors that I don't already own in some palette somewhere, sometimes from Wet n Wild. So that's great, but this teal, which really spoke, or this sky blue, it's not really a teal. The sky blue that really spoke to me is a very wishy-washy color. It's very difficult, I find, to build up to anything on my eyes, which you could, I guess, maneuver around that or just use it as a wishy-washy color, but I want that color to have some impact personally. This is another color that I was really drawn to in this palette, but again, it's very chunky. It's a beautiful color. It's a great kind of sunset gold peach, but I find that it's very chunky and it doesn't stay as, it fades weird. It kind of crumbles off my eyes and fades throughout the day, which is a bummer. This gold is really beautiful, though, I will say. That is less kind of chunky, sparkly, but still really metallic. But overall, there's really nothing in this palette that blows me away or that I don't have in another palette. Now, if you don't have a ton of eyeshadows and these are all colors that are new for you, except for that sky blue, unless you like the kind of wash of color idea, you know, it won't hurt to pick it up. It's $5. It's not terrible, but for me in my collection, this ended up being a little bit unnecessary. The other 10-pan palette I picked up is a Rosé in the Air. So this is the famous, at this point, Modern Renaissance dupe. So I was really excited to see this palette because the Modern Renaissance is one of those palettes that one or two shades really spoke to me, but for $42, I need the entire palette to speak to me, you know what I mean? And, you know, one of the shades, the big shade that always jumps out at me is this, which I think in Modern Renaissance is called Love Letter. Honestly, just for this shade, this whole palette is worth it to me. It's $5. The formula, similar to Not a Basic Peach, is drier than the old school formula. Some of the mattes are better than others. I do actually find that this shade takes a little extra work to blend. In fact, I'll link it in a card. My last empties video, I was wearing this eyeshadow palette. I have a little bit of it on today too, and I could see when I was editing that this shade was all over my lid and into my crease a little bit, and it did look a little bit blotchy. Most of this palette is matte. There are two shimmers, and then this shade is kind of a satiny color. These shimmers I find to be much nicer than the ones in Not a Basic Peach. They're not quite as intense as the old formula, but they are better than the Not a Basic Peach palette, I think, because they're not chunky, they're not thick, glittery shades, and they wear a lot better. To me, this palette is totally worth it. For $5, I get to play with that shade and, you know, have some other ones. I really like this kind of dusty mauve, and, you know, they're nice shadows, although I do prefer the old formula. Luckily, I feel like the quads are much closer to the old formula. These are by far, outside of that Love Letter dupe, these are my favorites of the palettes. This one is called Hooked on Vinyl. It's a really cool, it's kind of 70s to me. I wear this one a lot. I will probably be shooting a video with it at some point. But I find the shadows are not only more pigmented, they're creamier, they're easier to work with than the 10-pan palettes. This dark teal is what I wanted the dark teal in the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette to be. This is a little bit more green than that shade, but oh well. That gold is stunning. It's a little bit more coppery than the yellow gold that's in Not a Basic Peach, but it's a much better shade in my opinion. And then the last thing I want to talk about is Petallete, which is the other quad that I got. This is all, of course, quite purpley and gorgeous. I love this palette. This is one of those palettes that maybe doesn't swatch as well. You can see they look a little bit powdery, but when you actually use them on your eyes, it's just beautiful. So this kind of, ooh, a dusty mauve is very similar to the one in Rosé in the Air, and then you've got this pretty kind of satiny cream color, this gorgeous metallic lavender, and then this really great purple that, again, it doesn't swatch that well. It's kind of a grape, I'd call it a grape / eggplant type of color, but when you actually get it on your eyes, blend it into your crease, or I've used it as an eyeliner, it's beautiful. So long story short, the quads, retractable brow pencil, the liquid highlighters, and the skinny waterproof mascara have been my favorites of the relaunch for Wet n Wild. The Cushion foundation, I keep wanting to say Cushion mascara. I don't know why. Anyway, the Cushion foundation I really love, but it's not the right shade for me at the moment. And then the 10 pan palettes are, I'm not a huge fan of the formula change, although some of the colors are awesome, and I'm very grateful to have them. So I really appreciate you taking time to watch this video. If you have tried any of this stuff, if you have your own thoughts, if there is something from that collection that you think I should try but I didn't mention here, let me know, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys!